I was like a really good player.
Just the appreciation of basketball at all levels.
Yeah, I'm a player. I feel like I just gotta get on the court. You know, I feel like if I get the opportunity to get on the court, that's where the name comes from. Everyday guys and the everyday conversations we have.
Okay, everybody, welcome to episode 10 of the Everyday Guys podcast. For our 10th episode, we have the privilege of interviewing Mr. Keevan Veinot, Dalhousie legend, U Sport legend, CBL champ, 3-year pro, and a good friend of mine. So thanks for coming on the pod, Keev.
Thank you. I'm privileged to be the 10th. I really am.
So just to start off, I mean, for many of you, the people watching and listening who don't know, me and Keev are actually in the same league. And Keev, you have absolutely started off on fire. So I was looking up the stats. We talked about it recently, but in 4 games, you're averaging 24.5 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists, shooting 54 from 2, 48 from 3, and 93 from 1. You're second in the league in scoring, and you're third in overall efficiency. So safe to say it's a pretty phenomenal start. Has a start like this surprised you, or did you really expect to have a year like this when you came to the team?
Thank you first of all. I definitely, I wouldn't say I'm surprised. You know, playing CEBL, you come into these European seasons ready to go. You know, you're not rusty, you're not out of shape. And so, I was playing in Ottawa and I had a good role there. And so I came into training camp here, guns a-blazing, if you would. And so it took me no time to get adjusted or anything. But I mean, wow, just hearing you say those stats, that is a little surprising. And obviously it's 4 games, it's easy to have good stats with so few games. But I do expect to, or I am anticipating on having a good season here. And, that's why, you play any season. But I guess I would say, yeah, I'm a little surprised. That 47% is foreign for me. So
do you,
So you actually think, so it's interesting to hear your perspective that CABL actually helped you like transitioning into the season. Whereas like when I talk to some guys, they think like playing CEBL is like too much because it's all year round, right?
no, and I get that perspective too. It's really a double-sided sword there where, you don't have time to rest and recover and have that traditional off season. But then at the same time, looking at it from the other perspective, you're playing year round, you're ready to go. So I think I've sort of come at it from it wasn't even like an intentional decision, but I've played in the CBL. So I've played, I've taken a season off. I've played, I've taken a season off from the CBL. So it's kind of a interesting balance. But as of now, it's first day of October, unbelievably early in the season, but I'm still feeling good. So
do you when I mentioned off your stats, you were surprised to hear the numbers. Are you the kind of player that, yeah, I mean, I hear from both sides. There's players who check their stats after every game, keep track of it, pretty aggressively. And then there's players who just kind of play. And at the end, their stats are what their stats are. Like, where do you fit in that range?
I wish I had a better answer here, but like, I remember when we first started playing pro, Zane was like, you guys are going to check real GM pro ballers all the time. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to do that. But my first year, I definitely did check a lot. Last year, I didn't check it that often because I didn't like looking at those numbers. But I try not to look, like I remember this summer in the CBL, at one point I was shooting really well from the 3. That's really the thing that I'm focusing on the most. That's what I want to know. Because I think the rest of my game, the stats are going to happen, whatever it is, good or bad. But as long as I can consistently keep shooting the 3 at a high clip, that's what I need to know.
See, that's interesting because I like to think of myself as a shooter too. And I look at my 3-point percentage stats frequently. I can get into my own head. Like I remember vividly the Honey Badger season. The first 6 or 7 games into the season, I was top 5 in the league in 3-point percentage. And I checked it and I saw it. And all of a sudden, next couple of games, I was thinking about the fact that I was that top 5 in the league. And I was like hesitant to shoot. I was like, I need to get a good look so I can keep percentage. And it kind of messed with my head. So I mean, it's impressive that you look at that and don't let it affect your willingness to shoot.
Well, I mean, we say that, but I think overall, if you were to check my 3-point percentage throughout my whole career, it's not exactly reflective of 47%. So,
Gotcha. Fair enough.
yeah.
So just now that we mentioned you're in your third year pro, and this is definitely the best start you've had, and you've been around the block a couple of times. You've been in good situations. You've been in less ideal situations. How much of a decision between choosing where you go is based on what you are looking for or what your agent is recommending?
I think that's kind of like the golden question. There's always, do you get good stats, play for a bad team, but just get good stats and, try to make a jump that way? Or do you play for a good team and then your stats will suffer because of that, just because the team's better, well-rounded, more players? And honestly, I don't really know, because my first year I played for a team that wasn't the best. However, we had a really good season. And then I made the jump to Antwerp. And obviously, Antwerp's a very good team. We had great team success. However, like you said, I didn't have the personal success that I was looking to have. And so now I'm in a situation where I'm playing for a good team, reputable club, but I'm also trying to get good numbers, which any player will. It's hard. No one's going out there not to get good numbers. So I think right now the issue that we have is we had a tough preseason, new signings, injuries, visa problems, just trying to find a way to get our team clicking and meshing, because right now we're 1-3, not the best start, but or 1-2, but just finding ways to get wins.
Yeah, the whole overseas stats, team success dilemma it's interesting to me, because like you said, I see both sides of the coin. The kind of answer that I've gathered is, when you get to the highest leagues, I feel like excelling in a role and not there not being as much of an emphasis on statistics is more prevalent than the process of getting to those higher leagues. So if you're in, top leagues, top European competitions, and you're averaging, no one's really averaging more than, let's say, 11, 12 points, right? But then these leagues that are supposed to be these like building leagues, building blocks for your career, if you average lower numbers, you will have a tough time getting to the better leagues, So it's like you said, it's a very difficult balance to find between a player's role and the team goals.
Yeah, especially at this level, like, guys like Thomas Walkup, who we've talked about before. He's playing for where is he now? He's still with Olympiacos?
Olympiacos,
yeah. I got to do my fantasy for this after. But, he's playing there. He's scoring, I don't know, maybe 8 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds. Like, you look at guys like him, he's playing great defense. He does everything else, but he's not really the best statistical guy. However, before he was at that league, he was playing for Zalgiris, somewhere in the BBL, just killing, scoring 20 a game. And so I think at that level, everyone can do that. You have to, and different guys will have different nights. But like you said, at this level, it's, if you don't get those numbers, then it's really hard to make that jump.
Exactly. So before we, dive back into your pro career, let's go back to U Sport. So you come from a basketball family. Your dad was an all-star at Acadia. Your mom was an MVP at the University of, was it New Brunswick?
New Brunswick.
Twin sister, great player in her own respect. And then there's you, who also carved out an amazing U Sport career. I always wondered, was there pressure on you to play basketball, or was it something that just kind of organically happened? Like you loved the game and you ended up being a basketball player, or was there like a little bit of a nudge,
Maybe there was. I never thought there was one, but I mean, when my twin sister and I were 3, our older sister was 5, and mom and dad started a youth basketball program called Above the Rim, or Below the Rim, because we were below the rim, obviously. And instead of us getting a babysitter, they just brought us along. And so we would just be there as 3-year-olds, just in the gym. I don't know what we were doing, but we stuck with it. If at any time we didn't want to play, like if we wanted to quit, I know we could have, because it wasn't an issue with other sports. My older sister played until grade 12, had a solid basketball career, but just didn't want to do it anymore. It wasn't for her.
Yeah.
No setback, no pressure from mom or dad or whatever. But honestly, no, like, I'm sure they were happy when we both started playing basketball, or when we all started playing basketball and continued to play. But, if I wanted to play tennis, or if Jada wanted to play golf, or whatever it could have been, then they would have been happy with that as well.
Growing up in the East Coast, did you ever think? Did you always think to yourself, I want to go to like Dalhousie or anywhere in the East Coast, or was it like a lot of kids in Ontario, for example, that are always wanting to go down to the States?
Right. My dad grew up, or my dad went to school at Acadia, and then we grew up in the Valley, we were literally a 5-minute drive away from Acadia. So when I was young, I was like, oh, I want to go to Acadia. My dad was an assistant coach at the time, and so that's always what I thought. Then the time came when it was time for me to make a decision, and I didn't know what I wanted. I didn't, for some reason, I didn't want to go D1. It also wasn't a huge possibility for me coming out of high school in Nova Scotia, but no part of me was, I had offers to go play prep in Ontario or in the States when I was grade 10, 11, 12. And for some reason, I didn't want to do that. And I saw no issue in me doing that. And I ended up going to Dalhousie. It was between Dal and Ottawa. I ended up staying in Halifax, which I was happy about. But I don't think there was really any part of me that really wanted to stay in Nova Scotia. It just ended up happening that way.
Why do you think that was? Like, why do you think you really didn't have a desire to go down to the States or go to prep or whatever?
I think it was because I grew up in a village. There's like 2,000 people. Sort of the career that I've carved out for myself, I didn't have anyone. There were no footsteps to follow. There wasn't another person from my area who did it first. And so something that I'm pretty proud about is now I'm playing at a high level basketball professionally overseas, is now I have kids in the community in Nova Scotia who can follow those footsteps. What I did was not, it was hard, but it's not like, oh, that's unattainable. You know, I played bantam basketball in the Valley. I went to my local middle school, local high school, went to a local university an hour away, had a good career there, played in the CEBL, which is a great stepping stool. And now I'm just playing basketball professionally in Europe. And so now that there are kids that can see that, I hope that they follow those footsteps because, you know, it's possible. But at the time, it was really tough to tell because I had no one else to look after.
Right. I mean, I think it's great nowadays, especially that more people from Canada, that players that played in Canadian University are going to play pro and doing great things. I've always thought they've always been doing it, right? But I think it's more publicized, right? Like more people are like being talked about playing at the professional level, and you know, we talk about guys like Caleb Agata all the time, like playing at University of Ottawa and just killing it out there, right? And it's like, and you even see so many kids that are being recruited from like U Sport level to Division 1 level now.
Yeah,
it's insane, right? But I think it's good for people to hear that if you want to play at the professional level, it doesn't mean you have to go to Division 1 or play at the highest level at collegiate level, right?
No, not at all.
I think you know, just looking at your U Sport career and some of the accolades you've achieved, honestly, some that I didn't even know. You basically dominated for the majority of your career. You know, you were first team, you were on all rookie team, you were the first MVP in your school's history. The list grows. My question to you is, do you feel like the confidence you gained being kind of the guy for such a long time in college has given you the ability to kind of be able to have the pro career that you've been having?
I don't think so. And to be honest, I was never really the guy on any of my teams until I was in my third year at Dow. Like I grew up playing on some teams. I had some really good players who all played at the university level. And so like we had Gage Saban. I don't think you know who he is, but at the time he was like the guy, and I was just the facilitating point guard. And then when I got to Dow, we had Alex Carson, who was another great player, but we didn't really have anyone who was like an all-star until my third year, where I sort of took that step. And, you know, my grade 12 year, I would have had that, but we had this thing in Nova Scotia. It was a work tool rule. There was no extracurricular activities. It was awful. Didn't have a basketball season heading into my first year of school at university. And so I think, or then after my third year, there was the COVID year. So we also had no season then and there. And then my fifth year, it was sort of or my fourth year, my fifth year down, my um, fourth year of playing was another year of that. And then when I came to play pro, like it was coming off of the CBL team where I had a very small role with like Trey Duval, Lindell, Wigington, where they were the go-to guys. And I was basically just shooting spot up threes and cutting backdoor. But I think playing at levels like that allow you to get that experience and that like confidence instead of just always being the guy. Just knowing that you can compete with guys who play at these high levels, play in the G League, have some NBA experience, high overseas experience as well. I would say more of the confidence comes from knowing that I can compete with those players.
Gotcha. Makes sense. So earlier on, when you were talking about kid, like you had no one to really look up to, or the path that you took was kind of the first in and of its own in the area you were from. I know you obviously follow U Sport and you know guys like Hale Bagata and Johnny from University of Ottawa. Were they guys that you, even though they weren't from your area, that you looked up to, that were role models that showed kind of, you know, what it takes to succeed through the U Sport level?
Yeah, I mean, I always wanted to play in U Sport. I always wanted to have a successful career there. And so to see those guys, you know, get individual accolades and then win championships, OUA, U Sport, or CIS, whatever it was, to then go on to have these like, you know, blossoming European careers. Of course, it was guys I looked up to because it was like, then it was like, oh my God, this is possible. People can do this. So I think watching that, and, you know, at the time, I didn't know where they were going. I didn't know what the leagues were. I knew nothing about European basketball, but just knowing that they were getting paid to play basketball in Europe, it's enough for me.
Yeah. This hypothetical question, but do you think if you were in college now and you had the season, let's say your third or fourth year that you had at Dow, and you had the opportunity to transfer D1, would you have done it, or would you have stayed in Dow?
What's the hypothetical?
If you were in college right now, where like,
Yeah.
you know, there's the NIL stuff and
Right.
there's obviously an incentive to be D1. If you hypothetically finish your third year at Dal and you cook, and all of a sudden you have a significant amount of interest to some major D1 programs, do you think you would have done it, or you would have still tried to carve the U Sport path and you know?
Hypothetically, yes. Yes. And we had a kid I played with at Dow, Malcolm Christie, just had a phenomenal career at Dow and just got interest from a bunch of D1 schools after his season here, and ended up going to Oakland in Michigan. And he was like, I know the situation you've been in. What do you think? I said, I'll be honest, man. I didn't. I think you should. And so I think hypothetically, if I was in that situation again, I would. But you never know. Hypothetically, yes, for sure.
Yeah. I think I would have done the same.
Yeah. Plus NIL deals and all that now. It's tough for
game changer.
Like what can U Sport really do when, you know, it's almost like the NCAA is like poaching their top talent who stay.
Yeah.
They have no financial compensation. They can't be like, oh, we'll do this for you, because they can't. They can offer scholarships, but that's the extent of it. And then the way that things go in D1 in the States is just, it's night and day. There's really nothing that U Sport can do. So I don't know if things are going to change in that regard, but if not, then I think you're going to see a lot more of what's been happening recently.
I talked to one Division One coach. He told me, he's like, so I called this guy in some school in the East Coast. I called the coach and asked about a player, and this is a Division One coach. Asked about a player, and the head coach just said no, and then he hung up.
I mean, I guess that's really all you can do. You know, it's
but I was telling the Division One coach, I'm like, what else did you expect? Like, you're trying to recruit a guy from his team, so what else did you expect? But he's like, oh, I thought, you know, they still don't have the idea that U Sport is like an actual university program almost, right? They have no idea what like U Sport even is about. They think it's like almost JUCO. You know what I mean? So they don't really know, but then they still want like older guys.
Yeah.
You know, and then they just, I think nowadays is becoming more that you're obviously recruiting JUCO guys, but also like they're looking at a lot of U Sport guys.
Hmm.
So even when I talk to some of these U Sport coaches about recruiting some of our high school kids, they're always talking about, man, he might not go to Division 1 after high school, but if he stays in U Sport in a couple of years, he might go. I'm like, man, the world has changed,
Yeah,
you
and
know.
it has. Maybe that's the approach that U Sport takes. It's sort of just like a stepping stool to get to D1. I hope that won't be the case because I think the basketball here is getting a lot better,
Mhm.
especially in that league. But like you said, coaches aren't going to be like, yeah, go ahead, take my franchise point guard,
Yeah,
take him, go ahead. Like obviously, I'm sure they'd be happy for their player to make that step, but at the same time, I think you got to be a little bit selfish.
of course.
I mean, I don't really follow much. Maybe you guys know more, but has there been a lot of guys who jumped from U Sport to D1 recently that have played really well, like that have
Well, I
made a good
think
jump?
this year was the first. Like,
It was the
I
first.
mean, it's not the first. I mean, they've had guys where I think one kid from Ryerson in the past, he went to Florida State, but he was like an anomaly, right? He
Yeah,
was like 7 foot like 3 or something like
Okay,
that.
yeah.
But this year, starting this year, like University of Buffalo got a point guard, like he's like a 6'1", 6'2" white point guard from Western University, right? And then
mhm.
after that, it just started flowing. Like one kid, like a bunch of kids. I think more than 10 guys. Like I know
I
there's like,
saw a graphic on Instagram that said like the most notable U Sport transfers to D1, and some of them were really good schools.
yeah, like High Point. I know one kid just from Queens went to Oklahoma State.
Yeah, that's the one
It's
I saw too. Yeah,
it's insane, right?
yeah. Keith, so back to the fact that you played U Sport, you've played CBL, and now, like you said, you're playing high level professional. In in your mind, what do you think has been your most transferable skill that's allowed you to succeed
On the basketball court.
on the basketball court?
Oh wow, big question, Nico. Um, I think I have a knack for the game that's tough to teach. I think I can play. I don't know how to say this. I always get compliments from people who don't really understand basketball and say it looks like you know what you're doing, or the pace that you play the game looks really under control. So I think I played point guard my whole life. Now I'm more of a combo shooting guard, but just the way that I think I play the game the right way. And no coach is ever going to be like, I don't want a player, you know, who's not going to make the right pass or will give up a good shot for a better shot. So I think that would definitely be my most transferable skill. I don't even know if it's a hard skill or a soft skill, but it's just a part of my game that I like. And you also have it. Another reason why I
Hmm.
really like playing with you is because it was the same way. It's like, this is a team game,
Yep.
find the balance between me and us and just play to win. Do the right thing.
Yeah.
Do what you have to do. Some days it's going to be a big role. Some days it's not going to be.
I was interested to see what you were going to say because if someone asked me about your transferable skill, I would have said that too. And it's such like a finite thing. My coach actually 2 3 days ago in practice said a nice little tidbit that I agreed with a lot. But we were just running some offense, and we had a play where the help side underneath the rim was kind of like way far over, and so we had to reverse it to the 45, quick pass to the corner for a three. It's like a very
Yeah.
simple, easy play to beat the rotation. We did it once, got a wide open three, and scored. The very next possession, exact same defensive setup, so the offense would get the exact same result. Swung
Mhm.
it to the 45, and instead of the 45 making that simple pass to the corner again, he decided to like fake it, try and drive, overcomplicated the hell out of the action.
Yeah.
And he stopped everything, and he was like, just make the simple pass. In the pros, simple is elite. Like he's like being simple and understanding the simple things is actually not simple. It's elite. And it made you think like it really is true where being able to consistently make the simple right read is actually an elite skill.
Yeah, it really is. And honestly, that might be why we enjoy watching European basketball so much. Because
Yeah.
everyone says, it's so tactical and it's so X and O based, but it's just, you know, smart basketball players making the right read consistently.
Yep.
I
But
always
man,
think about this. Like when you're in the playground and you have 10 guys lined up and you're picking players, right? You got two teams and I got first pick. Like I think I would pick the person that I want to play with the most, right? Like it will be enjoyable for me to play with you, right?
Hmm.
Not a flashy guy, not a guy who's a high flyer or whatever, or scored the best. No, I want to play with the guy that I had fun with. You know what I mean? But and those are the guys that make the right play, and it is a rare skill, right? Because you guys play professionally. Like, how many guys do you come across that you love playing with? Not a lot,
Yeah,
right?
not many.
Not many, not
Yeah,
many. So it is a
yeah.
rare skill, if you ask me.
And I think it's also difficult, especially when you get to the pro level, because once again, we talked about it earlier, but the balance of
Yeah.
doing the right things and being that, simple play guy versus making sure you get your own. And that's a battle I, deal with internally all the time, because like he was a similar player to me, where we make the right plays and we make the right passes no matter what the situation is. Sometimes what can occur is nights the ball just doesn't come to you, or you're not in a position to score, and you make the right play and you make the right reads and you do the right things, but you end up with a very underwhelming stat line. And then it's like, if
Hmm.
you if too many of those nights stack up, it hurts your own individual goals, and it's a tough thing to be a smart basketball player, I'd say.
Yeah, it really is. And sometimes you just don't get the ball, which is unfortunate. Other times you make the right read
Yeah.
and it's a hockey assist. It's like, you can't be mad at that. It's just the way
Yeah.
that it turns out sometimes, and it's tough to be mad at that.
In
Like,
my in my in,
go ahead.
no, I said in my opinion, I think for players that play similar to the way we do, the most important thing is having coaches and teammates who value and understand the importance of what you do. And what I mean by that is games and nights where, like Keith said, the ball may not come to you, but you're making the right reads and the right passes. Instead of people or your teammates or your coaches seeing that as an off night, instead they still realize, oh, that extra pass you made was a crucial play, or that defensive stop, or that extra rotation that you made was key to winning. You know what I mean? Getting that
Mhm.
reassurance from people that they respect and value what you do, that may not show up on the stat sheet, goes a long way in keeping smart players, happy in what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, even if you don't have a great stat line, you can still impact the game playing the right way. Like if the ball gets reversed to my forward who's at the slot and I'm at the 45, if I'm cutting and if I'm averaging 24 points a game, I'm drawing attention. So if that's coming from, guy on a strong side corner, that's a more wide open shot than I could have gotten. And so
Yep.
do I get any type of statistical point for that? Nothing. But it creates a wide open shot for a team or for a
Yep.
teammate. So I think always having that thought process, and then like you said, the reassurance of having coaches know and be like, yeah, I didn't score in that situation, but what I did great for the team goes a
Yep.
long way.
Yep.
You guys brought up Thomas Walkup not too long ago. I had a chance to talk to Thomas Walkup's college coach at Stephen F. Austin, and when I was at the campus, I was like, what makes him different? Because when you watch him, he doesn't look that flashy. He doesn't look like your typical basketball player, so to speak, right? He makes the right passes, obviously. He makes the right shots. He plays really good defense. But I'm like, other than that, like, what makes him special? And he goes, Ray, like, he didn't play point guard position at Stephen F. Austin, but he obviously is now in Europe. But people love playing with him. I'm like, why? And he goes, like, he thinks about his teammates a lot. So when they're going up and down 4 or 5 times, and their big man hasn't touched the ball, and he looks like he doesn't even want to run, he goes, "Oh, I gotta make an effort to give him the ball and get him involved. I gotta get that guy involved, get that guy involved." So teammates like obviously gravitate toward that, and they go, "Oh, like I really want to play with this guy," which I thought it was an interesting thing, right? Like because when you think of professional basketball, you look at numbers and you look at you know um, tangible, so to speak. But to me, that's like one of the intangibles that I didn't even think about, right? But I think
Mhm.
that's what makes him a really, really good point guard, even though he doesn't look the part, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think like you said, if even without playing the point guard in college, just having that thought process automatically would have made him a great point guard, and it did. And I
yeah,
always say that point guard is by far the hardest position in basketball because you have to know the offense probably the best out of anyone on the team. You have to know everyone's position to be able to, manipulate whatever you see on the floor. And then that part, which is a crucial part, being constantly engaged and knowing what teammates need to get going, what you need to call for. Like you said, okay, if a teammate isn't getting going, run a play for him. Or if a teammate is successful in one spot, putting him in that spot to succeed. That's all the responsibility of a very high level point guard. And like you said, so much of it just goes on in one's head that a person watching the game won't even recognize. A very high level skill.
Hmm.
Keith, moving forward with your career, I think me and you both can attest to how long a pro season is in
Yeah.
Europe, right?
You and me better
It's
than anyone.
Yeah, it's a very lonely, up and down, sometimes rewarding, sometimes frustrating process. For you personally, how do you stay engaged and balance the ups and downs that you face throughout a very, very long European season?
Man, that's really it. That's the biggest. It's like that. That's like the worst part about being a professional basketball player overseas. It
Spot
really
on.
is. And you and I are both very family oriented, like close with our parents, sisters.
Yeah.
Um, so like you'll go through that stretch, January, February, where it's tough, it's dark, it's cold. You're gonna experience the Belgian and Netherlands rain. It's not fun. I think one thing I do is, obviously talk to family and friends as much as I can, but that's tough with the 5-6 hour time difference. Is I'll have teammates who I'm close with, and I'll let them know. Like I've already had this conversation with a few so far this year. It's like, there are going to be times where weeks are going to be hard. I'm going to be down. I'm not going to be feeling like myself. And so for them to know that, times like that will come, it's like, all right, what are we doing this week? Like, let's do some stuff together. Let's go out for dinner or go see a movie. Just do anything that can take away from the 10 months of being here, and what feels like 8 of them is winter.
Yeah, yeah.
So to have those teammates that are like, and typically with my experience, that's also been players who are also imports, because domestic players here, they have family, they have friends. After games, they're going to see their grandparents type thing, which is what I was like in Canada. But now that I'm in the Netherlands and I know only my teammates essentially, and that's the same with other imports. Like last year, I had a few Americans. After every single game, we would come to my apartment and hang out. We wouldn't like really do anything. We would just get together and just chill. Any off day, meet up in my apartment. If we're going to stay there, we'll stay there. If we're going to go elsewhere, we will. But just to find ways to break up the monotony of the season is essential.
Do
If
you
you
do you
don't, I
feel
don't
like
know how you could survive that.
do you feel like you're the one kind of pushing this, or they also all kind of feel the same way and agree that that's the best way to go about it? Or are you kind of like, yo, let's go hang out at my place and let's do it? You know what I mean? Are you the one driving everything?
I think I would be the one who like turned the car on type thing. Like I
Okay.
get this a lot. Like if there's a hangout, it's like, all right, I'm going to go. People will be like, oh, let's go. Like we didn't want to say that, but like, the time to end is here. And so when I'm like, all right, let's get together, like, let's do something, they're like, yes, love it. Let's do it. But they're also, to my understanding, the same wavelength. Like, what? I miss my family. I miss my friends. I haven't seen whoever in 6 months. Like, so that you sort of find family away from family.
Yep. No, I agree 100%. And you're definitely spot on about uh, the game itself is the easiest part about playing overseas. It's
Yeah.
everything that comes with off the court, and being away from home for such a long time. That really makes this career, I'd say challenging, especially for me and you, particularly like you said, family oriented and by ourselves. It makes a world of difference if you have a wife and a kid or a girlfriend who lives out with you. Like it's the loneliness definitely adds up quickly.
Yeah. So like, what about you? Because your first year you were in Split for
Yeah.
wasn't the full season, but you know,
Yeah.
you're in beautiful Croatia. Things could be worse. And then last year was your first full season overseas, and you were in Hungary. And like,
Yeah.
I didn't see you the entire season. Like,
Yeah.
and I was in the Netherlands. Like, we weren't that far, all things considered. But you know how
Yeah.
things work out. Like, how did you find it? How did you deal with it?
Time to talk
Man,
more shit about Hungary, Nick.
look, it's I think the like I said, the guys themselves and the team weren't bad guys. I just think we didn't get along as teammates usually do.
Mm-hmm.
Imports, particularly, like I was close with them, but you know, some of them had families, some of them just didn't really want to hang out. Like it wasn't an easy situation. The city was very small, like you know, and frankly, what you just said, like if we didn't hang out, I don't know how I'd make it through. That was me. I don't know how I made it through. I'm looking back now, and it sound okay. Like I don't want to sound like a spoiled, like I'm playing overseas basketball. Like life could be worse, right? But
Yeah.
it really was. I was pretty like I was depressed for a good amount of that season. Like I would practice and I would go home in my apartment by myself, play video games or watch movies, read a book, and then go to practice the next day.
Yeah.
I couldn't wait to go home. You like look back on something and it's like, man, that passed by way quicker than I thought it would.
Yeah.
This like felt every second of how long I was over there, you know?
Right.
I was worried it was going to be like that this year. I was talking to my parents before I left for Belgium, and I said if I have the same experience that I had in Hungary, I'm going to come home. I don't want to go through this another 10 months. It's not worth it for me. It doesn't justify what I'm doing, the work I'm putting in. And thankfully it's been much better here, and socially it's night and day different.
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
That's the second question I had that kind of followed up into this. What does motivate you to play overseas basketball, and where do you kind of draw the line where you know you may just be digging yourself a deeper hole and kind of avoiding, you know, real life waiting, because it's waiting for all of us. Eventually the ball's going to stop bouncing.
Yeah.
Like what kind of motivates you, and how do you justify playing overseas basketball for you personally?
Mm-hmm. That's also a really tricky question. I think at the end of the day, what really keeps me going is it's just a game that I love to play. You know, whether team's winning or losing, if I'm playing well or not. It's a game that I've played my entire life. Obviously, you have up and downs with it. I've been playing for over 20 years now, but I still love it. So I think at the end of the day, I can always lean back on that. However, you know, there have definitely been times where I've had thoughts or conversations with close friends about, it's like, you know, like, how long am I going to do this? What am I willing to put up with? And I think, well, for me personally, after I said, I'm going to do it for 1 year. If I don't like it, I'll do it for 1 year. Say I tried it, wasn't for me. Did that, checked it off. And so then my next assessment was I had a 3-year and a 5-year. And if by this, so this is my 3rd year now, if by the end of this year, if I'm not enjoying it to the extent that I think I could, or more importantly, if this is like financially going to be a burden on me in the future, then I'll reassess, because I turned 26 this year. Do I think I could be making more money working somewhere in Canada? Probably. However, I don't know if I want that. So that's something that I also weigh. But then at the same time, you know, like I was in Belgium all last year, came back, was in Ottawa for the summer, which was great. But then at the end of the season, I went back to Nova Scotia for 5 days. Got to see family, friends. Obviously, they came and visited while I was in Ottawa, but I got to be back in Nova Scotia for those 5 days. And then I packed up and I went to the airport and I said, okay, I'm going to the Netherlands for 10 months. And I'm leaving behind 99.9% of people I know and love in my life. That's a tough thing to do every single year. Even, you know, you're going to get here, you're going to make good friends. You're going to be able to travel around a bit. It's going to be enjoyable, but it's so hard every year to just leave that. Just the act of leaving that is gut wrenching. And I'm sure it's the same with you. Like, I remember being at the airport talking to one of my teammates from last year and be like, I'll be honest, man, like this might be it for me. Like this might be the last time I do this. Just going through some stuff. But, you know, then you get here and you're enjoying it. And So to be honest with you, Nico, I don't really know. I don't, and I know that's okay. I'm just going at it 1 year at a time. I think it's well, I know it's tough for some people in my life to sort of endure that. Just me, just having this, I'm going to be in Antwerp for a year. I'm going to be in Groningen for a year. But I know people who say I'm going to play till the wheels fall off. That won't be me. One thing I am really looking into doing is someone who's interested in entrepreneurship in business is to start something to build some sort of connections while I'm here playing basketball in Europe. So by the time I decide to stop playing, it won't be like, oh no, what am I going to do? Like I'll have, other endeavors, or I'll have foot in other doors. It's just something that I can sort of seamlessly make that next step in my life, which is also something that I'm looking forward to. So that's sort of my all-encompassing answer to that tricky question, but I don't know, man. And I know it's different for everyone. Like, what is it for you? It could be completely different.
Well, the last thing you said was probably the most accurate thing, where I feel like a lot of hoopers portion off their playing career and their post-playing career into mutually exclusive categories, where if you have some sort of plan to whatever that may look like for you, like you said, for you, entrepreneurship, or for someone else, building connections in an industry they want to eventually work in, having some kind of idea and some kind of path that you will take after you finish playing, I feel is vital and essential to not falling into like a deep, dark depression of, I finished playing, I'm back home now, I have no clue what to do with my life, I'm completely starting over. That's a crucial part of I think making the transition of stopping playing, whenever the case, whenever that may be easier. But for your original question, yeah, like you said, for me, I still love playing hoops. I try and remind myself that, young Nico wanted to be a professional basketball player one day, and that's what I'm doing now. Obviously, it gets more difficult the older you get. I think for me, the most eye-opening thing is, I was at Notre Dame, away from home since 19, and it's nice to be home, but I never dreaded going back. And when I was at school, I was never really actively thinking about home.
Okay.
And yet now, every single pro season that I have, and every other year I spend away from home, I find myself thinking about home more and more while I'm at, these places. Like I said, I'm loving Belgium. My teammates are great. The vibe is great. I'm happy here. Yet I still find myself, late at night when I'm by myself in the apartment, thinking about home. My sister's about to have a kid. I would love to be around for my nephew. Like things like that are just it makes it a lot harder, like you said. So for me, I also have some injuries that I deal with from time to time. I think I'll play until I'm not happy playing anymore. And I don't know when that's going to come. And when it does, I'll be ready to, move into the next steps like anybody else would.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Is that thought of, okay, when I stop playing basketball, I could be 28, I could be 30, 31, whatever. Like, I have to start a new career again. Is that thought a bit scary? Because I mean, for me it was, right? Like when I started, I'm not playing basketball professionally, but when I started getting into coaching, when I started getting into basketball training, it's not lucrative at first, right? But then the scary thought I had was like, what if I like dive into this for 5 years, whether I make it or not, and I still have to find a new career because this shit is not worth it for me. Now I'm gonna be 28, 29 years old, like kind of behind in the career that I want to be in. Maybe is that thought a little bit scary to you guys, or?
I think it's definitely a scary thought. It's not one I have that often. Like I've had friends who've played overseas and then or did an MBA, and then when he was back in Nova Scotia, received an offer that he just, as he said, he couldn't turn it down, and so that's why he stopped playing. I know that's not the case for most players, but I think a big issue that a lot of pro athletes, specifically pro basketball players, have is to be more than just a basketball player. Like we grew up with the slogan "Ball is life." That was like plasterized everywhere. Anything basketball I saw, ball is life. Everyone would say ball is life. Like basketball is my life. And for me personally, I don't know why. I'm not sure what it was, but I always knew that I was more than just a basketball player. And not even necessarily like a different type of athlete. Like I just enjoyed other things in life that wasn't basketball. And so, I think as people finally stop playing their sport and then they have the identity crisis of my entire life I've been a basketball player, I'm no longer that. What's next? I think that's the really big glaring concern that a lot of people have. But like Nico and I have said, like right now we're working on, developing or growing or building things so we won't have that crisis whenever we stop playing. What do you think about that, Nico?
Yeah, I agree. I think you definitely do an amazing job of being a more well-rounded individual, I would say, than majority
for
of
sure.
pro basketball players that I've seen, myself included. You do a great job of it. And that's a credit to your upbringing, who you are as a person. That's definitely the biggest struggle that I'd say athletes face, who you are without the sport.
Right.
And if your own personal value comes from your successes in athletics, when you take that away, what's left. But the original question of do I have a scary thought of starting something new? I don't think it's the actual thought of starting something new. For athletes, I think we're extremely privileged to be able to be in a career doing something we're passionate about. And millions and millions of people, 90% of the population, works because they need to. They wake up every day, they go to whatever job they have so they can earn their paycheck enough to live. And it's not necessarily something that they're passionate about or that motivates them. And I've had the privilege of doing that up until now. When it's time to start something new, I'm not afraid of something new. I'm just afraid of not finding something that I'm passionate about or that motivates me like basketball did. Because the last thing I'd want, whether or not I'm making good money, is to be in a career after I felt what it's like to do something you're passionate about, being in a career or an industry and doing something that I hate to do every day. And so I think it's the biggest fear is just making the right decision of doing something that you love to do, so that new passion takes over and you don't, feel yourself just stuck and focused on those 20s when I got to play basketball, that's when life was great. And after 28, 29, everything went to shit. I don't want to be one of those guys.
Right.
That's the biggest fear, I'd say, but not the whole idea of starting something new.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. Because maybe the thought of doing something that you're not really passionate about is more scary than starting something new,
Correct.
right? I've definitely had those thoughts, right? But because you do basketball and you tell people that you do basketball, I coach basketball, I train in basketball, and people always go, oh, like that, oh, that sounds so much fun, and you must be having a great time. I'm like, I mean, sometimes, right? Like, when basketball becomes your job, it's a job. Maybe you don't love it all the time, but then
Yeah.
you always go, I mean, I always go, I would still rather do this than anything else,
Yeah.
right? So maybe
Agree.
that thought of doing something that you don't love doing it is more scary maybe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
Nico, that's a great point. Honestly,
thanks,
the way
man.
that you said that, like I'm sure I've thought of it, not consciously, but I grew up with parents who were both educators and both love what they did. Same with my grandparents. My sisters are both pursuing masters, which they want to do. We're playing pro basketball. A lot of people in my close circle are like actively pursuing what they want to do. So to then experience that, to then not that, yeah, it's a great point.
Yeah. There was a thing, I think it was Terry Henry, the soccer player. He was in a podcast and it was a quote that said, obviously this is, cream of the crop NBA guys, like soccer for him, FIFA, Premier League, like cream of the crop athletes, right? Making millions and millions of dollars. I'm not oblivious to the fact that we're not on that level, but regardless, he mentions that professional athletes die twice in their lifetime. Once when they stop playing their sport, and once when they actually die. And I think what he means by that is, like you said, that passion and that that ability to do what you love all of a sudden stopping, a little part of you dies inside. And like I said, just I think everyone's desire after that is to find something that ignites a new passion as much as, playing your sport did. So, yeah. But very dark, sad. I think before we wrap it up, it's important to note that both of us are currently playing professionally and currently doing well. And so, yeah, the question I have for you is now that, like you said, we talked about what professional basketball means to you, what motivates you. What are some of your personal goals that, looking back, whenever your career ends, you'll be like, I achieved what I wanted to achieve. Some people have teams they want to play for. Some people have the money they want to earn. Do you have like a path that you hope to take before you retire?
Not really. Honestly, I have some dream leagues that I do want to play in, but I don't have like, I want to play I want to play at the highest level that I can while I'm still enjoying it, and it still makes sense for me to do it. So that's sort of my mindset with playing basketball professionally. I do want to play in Italy just because it's Italy. And I also want to play in Australia. I think Australia is sort of my dream league. I know it's not like the European style of basketball, but it's a shorter season. It's in Australia, which from September to March is typically winter, summer down there. So if I could have year-round summer, things could definitely be worse. But aside from those two and that like principle, I would say that's really, I'm just out here enjoying my life as a pro athlete in Europe.
Which is the way it should be. Living in the moment and taking it step by step and seeing what, yeah.
Exactly. Like I'm in a great situation right now. I'm in a lovely city. I'm playing for a basketball organization that has faith in me. I don't want to like not be, fully bought in on this because I'm thinking, oh, what if I could get bought out and go play at this league? Or, like, oh, I didn't play well enough this game if I want to play in this league or play for these teams. So just to be to have your head where your feet are and just enjoy the journey of being a pro athlete, whatever that looks like day by day. I think that's what it's all about.
And I think that's the way it needs to be. If you start thinking ahead of yourself, then the present gets all messed up. And I think you've got the right idea. And because of that, I think you're going to have a great season. And I hope you have a great season. Minus when you play us.
Well, speaking of, you played in Zwolle 2 days ago, and hour away from you decided not to tell me.
Oh, I thought. Yeah, I guess I maybe should have. My parents were there. You could have sat next to them. It could have been a nice little cheering section.
Yeah, it could have been great. I could have brought a Canadian flag and everything.
Man, you were an hour away. I didn't even notice. I didn't even take that in.
I kid you not. I had a teammate who was at the game. His brother lives in Zwolle. And I was like, yo, are you at this game right now? He's like, yeah. I was like, my boy's kind of popping off. 14-point first quarter, whatever that was. Outrageous. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like, wait, it took me so long to like clue in that.
Yeah, I didn't even take it in.
I could be there right now. And I kid you not, I packed up. I ran out to the car. I sat in the car. It was 2:25. It was an hour 5 drive. And I said, it'll be 3:30 when I get there and I have to get gas. And I was like, Nico's kind of playing the best game of his life right now. I don't really want to miss the drive to see him because I know I will see him soon. But yeah man.
Sometimes I even forget that we're in sometimes I even forget that we're in like the same league because we're in different countries. And I forget that like we're relatively close to one another.
Bro, like I was saying last year, like when Kat was in Amsterdam and I was in Antwerp, like that was a 2-hour drive. When I was in Halifax and she was in New Brunswick, it was 4. Yeah. Those are like neighboring provinces. We're in 2 separate countries.
I looked at the map though. You're way north in Holland.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how north you really are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it is north, but the Netherlands is so small. Like
how close are you to Den Helder?
An hour. That's just like basically completely west.
Because we play there in 2 weeks. We have a bye week now, and then we play at Den Helder on Saturday, October 12th, I think it is.
Okay. Well, that's cool because I'm playing in Ulst this weekend. Okapi. I don't know. It's like pretty close to Brussels. AALST. Okapi. I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
I have a bye week and I have all of Saturday off.
Well, I'll be there Saturday if you want to come watch. Just
All right, cool.
and who
What
knows?
time's the
maybe
game at night?
Yeah, probably 7:30. Most of the cross-border games are at 7:30, except for the Sunday ones.
All right, we'll figure something out.
We're gonna cut this part out. Nobody's interested.
just a little Belgian Dutch bromance.
I forgot we were on. I forgot we were on the podcast right now. Honestly.
No, but Keev, honestly, thanks for coming on. It was great. And it's been a pleasure catching up with you. And like I said, hopefully I see you soon.
Yeah, man. Well, like I said, I'll be there Saturday. So
Thank you.
yeah, nice meeting you, Ray.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you.